My name is Maya Price. I work at a government communications facility called Station Alohan, buried beneath the cliffs of northern Wales. The kind of place you don't find on a map, and you don't talk about once you leave. If you leave. I was only 3 weeks into the job when the emergency broadcast came through. It was 2:13 a.m., the halls were silent, and the only sound in my comms room was the low hum of servers and the occasional click from the fluorescent lights overhead. I'd made a cup of awful instant coffee and was trying to stay awake by playing Sudoku on the monitor next to the official feeds. Night shifts were always uneventful. At Alohan, the boredom was part of the job. You were expected to observe, log minor technical anomalies, and report nothing to no one unless told otherwise. But then the static hit. A sharp, ear-piercing hiss flooded my headset and bled into every speaker in the control room. Monitors went black and rebooted themselves. The security feeds stuttered. Then one by one, they lit up again. Except now, instead of silent halls and empty rooms, the screens showed only a single flashing red warning. Emergency broadcast system engaged. Protocol, Black 6. Lock all doors. It's already inside. I blinked. At first, I thought it was a drill. We'd been through emergency simulation once during onboarding, and even that had been laughably tame. A fire alarm test, a brief security lockdown, then lunch. But this was different. There was no alert over the staff PA system. No movement from the barracks down the hall. Not even a radio confirmation from the surface team. Just silence. I tapped my headset MIC. Control to surface command. Please confirm Black 6 protocol. Nothing. Only static. Surface command. This is Maya Price. Emergency signal received. Please confirm if this is a drill. Still nothing. The message kept pulsing on screen, looping every 7 seconds. Lock all doors. It's already inside. I felt my heart rate climbing, irrationally so. Maybe it was the late hour, the caffeine, or the blaring red glow on every screen. But something about the wording "it's already inside" wasn't just ominous. It felt final. I leaned forward and began checking the security feeds. The facility had 27 internal cameras, 4 on sublevel 1 where I was, 8 on sublevel 2, labs and server rooms, and the rest scattered across the dormitory halls, upper surveillance towers, and restricted access zones. One by one, I scanned through the feeds. Empty. Quiet. Still. Until I saw movement on camera 17, hallway 2B, near the defunct storage wing. A figure. But not walking. Not exactly. It moved just outside the edge of the frame. Fast. Twitchy. Like someone crawling, or dragging themselves against the wall. But when I rewound the feed and paused, nothing. Frame by frame, there was just flickering light, some blur, and a strange streak of shadow that didn't match the ceiling lights. I checked the feed again. It was gone. My hands hovered over the keyboard. I considered calling again, but that rising feeling in my gut told me something was wrong. Something worse than a glitch. I pulled up the comms log and stopped cold. There had been no emergency signal sent from the surface command. No protocol trigger. Nothing in the system logs to indicate any broadcast had even occurred. It had simply appeared from nowhere. A cold sweat was forming down my spine. I was trained to follow instructions, no matter how strange. So I stood up and locked the comms room door. Manual deadbolt. Triple latch. Just in case. I returned to the monitor, and all 27 cameras had gone dark. Just black. Every single one. Then the lights in the comms room flickered. Once. Twice. Off. On. I froze. The silence was thick. No hum from the vents. No buzz from the lights. Nothing. I took off my headset and could hear my own heartbeat in the emptiness. Then I heard breathing. Slow, wet, ragged. Like someone just outside the room, right against the door. I backed away, step by step, staring at the steel door. But it was locked. No handle moving. No shadow beneath. Then I realized something horrifying. The sound wasn't coming from the door. It was coming from above. I looked up. The ventilation grate above my desk was loose. Hanging slightly open. Something inside shifted, the faintest scuffle of fingers on metal. Nails scratching gently. A sniff. And another breath, deeper this time. I stumbled back and grabbed the only thing within reach, a metal flashlight. I held it like a weapon, though I doubted it would do anything. Then I whispered, "Hello?" Silence. Then, softly, a voice. My voice. From the vent. "Hello?" I stopped breathing. It was exact. The same pitch. Same tremble. Same uncertainty. The thing in the vent had copied me. And then it spoke again, this time more confident. "Hello, Maya." Then a giggle. A high-pitched, stuttering laugh like a broken cassette. I ran. I slammed open the emergency exit and sprinted down the corridor, past server room B and the emergency med bay. Every light overhead flickered as I passed. The hallway felt longer than it should have been, like it was stretching, pulling away from me. Behind me, I heard the sound of metal crashing, the vent falling to the floor, and something crawling out. I made it to the secure door that led to sub-level 2. It required dual authentication, keycard and biometric. I swiped mine, trembling, and pressed my palm to the scanner. Nothing. The screen blinked red. Access denied. Biometric mismatch. What? No. Try again. I wiped my hand and pressed again. Access denied. Biometric mismatch. My hand hadn't changed. My print hadn't changed. So why was the system saying I wasn't me? I turned around. The corridor was empty. Silent. But I knew it was out there, copying me. Hunting. I sprinted back to the comms room, the only place I could lock down with manual override. The moment I reached the door and slammed it shut, the monitors flickered back on. But they weren't showing security feeds. They were showing me. Dozens of screens, all showing live angles of the comms room from impossible perspectives. From the floor. From the ceiling. From inside the vent. One even showed a rear view of me sitting at the desk, even though I was standing. And on every screen, I wasn't alone. Behind me, on each display, stood a tall, black silhouette. No features. Just a glitching blur of static where the face should be. I turned in terror, but the room behind me was empty. The monitors all blinked off again. A moment later, the emergency message returned. Lock all doors. It's already inside. You shouldn't have seen this. And then, I heard it again. From the vent above. Breathing. Closer this time. Then, slowly, a hand began to reach out. Pale. Human-looking. My hand. It was me. Reaching down from the vent. Smiling. The hand hung there, limp but twitching, dangling from the open vent like bait. My hand, down to the thin scar on the wrist from when I fell off a bike at 12. It even wore my chipped blue nail polish, right hand only. But I wasn't in the vent. I was here. Standing frozen, heart thudding, flashlight shaking in my grip. Watching myself reach out of a hole in the ceiling. And then it pulled back. Like a puppet yanked off stage, the arm slithered back into the shaft with an unnatural hiss, followed by faint scraping and more of that horrible, wet breathing. Then silence. Total, pressing silence. I backed away from the vent and slammed the heavy server cabinet door shut beneath it, sealing it off. Then I slid to the floor, back against cold steel, breathing hard. What the hell was happening? I needed help. Real help. Not the facility's auto voice or ghost monitors. I flicked on the emergency uplink console. It was an encrypted satellite line meant only for priority communication with the Surface Command Center. It bypassed all internal systems. Or it was supposed to. I held the MIC close. This is Maya Price from Station Alohan. Code 4793A emergency broadcast triggered without authorization. Possible breach. Requesting immediate verification of Black 6 protocol. A pause. Then static. I tried again, louder. Station Alohan requesting immediate confirmation. Is Black 6 active? I need to know if this is real. Finally, a voice. Faint, crackling through the line. Repeat, Station Alohan, No emergency protocols currently active. No alerts issued. Confirm your signal source. I stared at the MIC. Didn't send the broadcast. Negative, the voice said. No protocols have been triggered. Are you alone down there? I hesitated, then lied. Yes. There was a long pause. Do not interact with any individuals until further notice. Lock yourself in the most secure room and await clearance. We're initiating review of the system breach. And then, the line cut. Dead air. Gone. I sat frozen, the receiver still in my hand, the phrase ringing in my head like a scream. Do not interact with any individuals. The lights flickered again. I jolted up and spun around. Still alone in the comms room. For now. But I knew I couldn't stay here. Whatever this thing was, it had reached me even in the most secure zone. I opened the server logs again and started searching the root directories. Most of the files were inaccessible without higher clearance. But tucked deep inside a hidden folder, labeled in garbled code, I found a document. A single file. Encrypted. I bypassed the encryption using a recovery key, a little trick an old technician had shown me, supposedly just to speed up reboot logs. And there it was. A protocol labeled null//containment override, black 6 threat classification. Status, breached. Designation, entity null. Description, unknown mimetic organism. Sentience confirmed. Capable of environmental and cognitive infiltration. The document scrolled on, listing redacted incident logs from as far back as 1971. Each labeled, failed, failed, failed. And then, do not engage. Do not follow voice instructions unless verified. Null copies. Null infects. Null learns. My skin crawled. The file ended with a final directive. If you are reading this, it's already inside. Do not trust what you see. Do not trust yourself. I backed away from the console, bile rising in my throat. That thing, whatever it was, it had copied me. And now I knew, this wasn't some spontaneous incident. It had happened before. They'd known. The protocol existed. But no one had said a word. I needed to find someone. A real person. Someone still human. Sublevel 2 had an old maintenance room used by the janitorial staff and low-clearance engineers. They rarely mixed with the scientists. If anyone survived undetected, they'd be there. I left the comms room with a makeshift weapon, a broken metal pipe from the console base, and made my way carefully through the dim corridors. The emergency lights were now tinted orange, casting long shadows. Every corner looked alive. Every flicker made me jump. As I passed the main lab hallway, I froze. Someone was coming toward me. White lab coat. Slender. Mid-50s. Glasses glinting under the lights. Dr. Emmett. One of the senior researchers. He smiled. But there was something wrong with it. Too wide. Too calm. Like a mask. Maya, he said softly, thank God. We've been looking everywhere. I tightened my grip on the pipe. Who's we? He paused, just for a second, and blinked. Only, he didn't blink. His eyelids twitched, like they were about to close, but never did. The motion restarted again. And again. Like a glitch in an animation. I've been watching the feeds, I said, stepping back. There's no one else. You're not even supposed to be on this floor. He tilted his head. Maya, we're past protocols now. Let me take you to the safe room. I ran. He didn't follow. At least, not at first. But as I turned the corner, I heard it. The sound of something flickering behind me. Like TV static on wet carpet. And when I glanced back, he was gone. The corridor was empty. But on the security screen mounted on the far wall, the one usually disabled, I saw him. Not walking. Melting. His figure shimmered, blurring into static, and then reformed in another hallway. This time in a different lab coat. Shorter hair. Younger face. It had copied someone else. Again. I found the maintenance corridor and pounded on the door. A voice whispered from inside. Say your name. Full name. Maya. Maya Price. Code 4793A. A pause. Then the door opened just a crack. A single dark eye stared out at me. And then the door unlatched. Inside was a man in dirty grey coveralls, holding a wrench like a weapon. He was trembling, thin, and his eyes were wide with a kind of fear that had lived here longer than I had. "You're new," he said quietly. "Aren't you?" I nodded. "How long?" 3 weeks. He gave a weak smile. "Then you've still got most of yourself." I blinked. "What do you mean?" He closed the door behind us and locked it with 4 manual bolts. Then he leaned in and said one word. "Null." That name again. "What is it?" I asked. "A virus? Alien?" He shook his head. "It's a thought that thinks back. Something we pulled from the edge of the signal band in '98. Wasn't meant for us. The lab boys thought it was background noise from a dying star. But it wasn't." He pulled a crumpled photo from his pocket. Showed me a shot of the old research team. 7 people. All smiling. "All of them are null now," he said. "Or copies. They walk like them. Talk like them. You think it's your friend. Until it hums." "Hums?" I repeated. He nodded. "It sings back the thing that hurts you most. That only you know." I went cold. The tune my mother used to sing. I had never told anyone about it. Just then, a loud clang echoed from outside. We both froze. Then, a knock. 3 times. "Maya." The voice was mine. "I'm scared. Please let me in." The man's eyes went wide with horror. "That's not you." I stepped back, trembling. "It's using my voice." He nodded slowly. "It knows you now. That means it's learning your shape. Your choices. It can't copy your soul, but it doesn't need to. Not if no one can tell the difference." Another knock. This time, stronger. Crackling static leaked under the door, like smoke made of electricity. Then, a laugh. My laugh. Mocking. Hollow. It whispered, "I liked being you." And then it stopped. The silence after was worse. I turned to the maintenance man, terrified. "How do we stop it?" He looked at me, exhausted, eyes bloodshot. "We don't. We just survive. And hope to God it gets bored." He handed me a folded note. "Room 9, East Wing, behind server storage C." "What's this?" I asked. "Where it started. And maybe where it ends." He turned off the light. And we waited in the dark. The note crumpled in my hand as I stared at the words again. Room 9, East Wing, behind server storage C. There was no Room 9 on the facility maps. Even in the restricted server blueprints I accessed earlier, there was nothing past storage C, just a solid wall. But this place had lied before. Maps, logs, even people. Or things pretending to be people. The maintenance worker, Garrett, he finally told me, was already packing supplies into a canvas bag. Flashlight, a paper map, water, a crowbar. "We've got maybe 20 minutes, he whispered, "before it finds this room again. It always does." "But how?" I asked. "It doesn't need doors," he said, eyes dark. "It needs memories. If you think about a place, it learns it. If you picture someone, it learns them. That's how it spreads." I blinked. "Wait, I've been watching the security feeds." He gave me a grim look. "Then it's seen what you've seen." The East Wing hadn't been used in years. It was partially decommissioned after a failed electrical upgrade caused 2 lab fires. Or at least, that's what the official record said. In truth, it was sealed. When Garrett pried open the service hatch behind server storage C, I felt like I was stepping out of time. The air beyond it was still, dead, like it had never been touched by movement or heat. The corridor ahead was narrow, unlit, and covered in a fine layer of dust. Not like the other areas that were cleaned weekly by bots. This place had been deliberately forgotten. We moved slowly, each footstep sending up soft clouds from the floor. Pipes overhead groaned faintly, as if remembering their purpose after years of silence. Finally, at the end of the passage, we saw it. A plain steel door. No markings. No lock. Just a fingerprint scanner, blinking dead red. Garrett took out a small handheld terminal. I've been working on this override key for months. It only works if the internal power lines haven't completely rotted out. He attached it, typed a quick code. Beep, beep, click. The light turned green. The door slid open, and a wave of cold washed over us. Room 9 was more like a chamber. Circular. Walls padded with acoustic foam. No furniture. Just dozens of VHS tapes, stacked in piles and shelves, all labeled by hand. Containment, 1974. Test footage, entity response. Host trials, null 6A6F. Failure. Do not view. There were no digital systems in sight. No cameras. No screens. It was like they were deliberately keeping this room analog. I picked up one tape and read the spine. Do not view alone. Subject 4A hallucination test. Why tapes? I asked quietly. Garrett's voice was low, distant. Digital files can be rewritten, erased, watched through. Analog makes it harder for it to replicate and slip inside the data. I swallowed. He moved to the far wall and pulled back a torn cloth. Behind it, bolted to the floor, was a battered old TV and a dusty VCR. One tape was already inside. Garrett hesitated, then hit play. The screen flickered to life. Black and white grain. A timestamp, the 7th of March, 1984, 2:14 a.m. A man sat in a small, padded room, similar to this one. He looked calm. Too calm. He smiled at the camera. Hello, he said. My name is Michael Price. I blinked. What? Garrett turned. Your name? Maya. Maya Price, I whispered. I don't know a Michael. The man on the screen continued. They say I'm infected. That I brought something back. But I don't feel different. Except when I sleep. I dream in static. I see myself watching me from the ceiling. He laughed suddenly. Loud. Wrong. Then, in a smooth motion, he gripped his jaw and pulled his face off. Not blood. No flesh. Just blank static underneath. White noise. A face made of flickering pixels. He leaned toward the camera. And in a childlike, high-pitched voice, he whispered. She's listening now. The screen cut to black. I stumbled backward. No, I whispered. No, that's not possible. I don't know him. I don't. But in the pit of my stomach, something curled. Not fear. Not yet. Recognition. A memory I didn't remember. A smell. A sound. Garrett pulled the tape out and smashed it on the ground. Too long, he hissed. It latches through sound. If you listen too long, it marks you. He looked at me, sweat beading down his neck. Did you ever have memory gaps? Missing time? Recurring dreams as a kid? I nodded slowly. Garrett gritted his teeth. You've been marked longer than you know. The lights went out. Total blackness. And from the doorway, a hum. Soft. Familiar. The lullaby. The one my mother used to sing when I had night terrors. Low and broken, it echoed through the chamber in a woman's voice. My mother's voice. I couldn't help it. I whispered, Mum. Garrett grabbed my shoulder. Don't. It's not her. But I was already stepping toward the door. And there, in the faint light of Garrett's flickering flashlight, stood a woman in a nightgown, swaying gently. Her hair was wet, her hands twitching. Maya, she cooed, you're not sleeping well again. It was her face, my mother's, soft and kind and utterly wrong. Because my mother died when I was 14. And this version was still the same age. Not age today. Garrett raised the crowbar, but the figure vanished into static, like a glitch in reality. Gone. No sound. No step. Just gone. I backed away. She knew the tune. I whispered. Because you remembered it, Garrett said. It's not her memory. It's yours. We turned to run. But behind us, in the center of the chamber, stood me. Or something that looked like me. Same haircut, same posture, but wrong. Her smile was too wide. Her teeth were just slightly off, like someone trying to draw them from memory. And her eyes didn't blink. She whispered in perfect mimicry, "You're tired, Maya. Let me take it from here." I screamed and swung the pipe. It passed through her, like smoke, but left a ringing in my ears, like I'd hit metal. Garrett pulled me back and threw the emergency breaker on the wall. Sparks flew. The thing hissed. Its skin flickered, my skin, and twisted into someone else. Dr. Emmett. Then the cleaner from the mess hall. Then a young version of myself, maybe 5 years old, crying. It was flicking through my entire life. Then it disappeared, a pop of static and silence. We ran, back through the corridor, past the dust and flickering lights. But something had changed. The walls weren't right. Too smooth. The doors, duplicated. Looped. We'd turn a corner and be back in room 9. Turn again, back at server storage. The building had shifted. "Maya," Garrett said, voice hollow. "It's not just in people anymore." "What?" "It's copying the building." We were inside Null now. Inside a replica of Alohan it had made from our memories. I pressed my palms to the wall and screamed, "This isn't real." Then the wall opened like paper, tearing into an endless black hallway lined with mirrors. Hundreds of mirrors. And in each reflection, a different version of me. Some were crying. Some were staring blankly. One was laughing, head tilted. But only one reflection didn't move, didn't breathe. It just watched. That one stepped out of the mirror and whispered, "I don't need you anymore." I had no idea which version of me stepped out of that mirror. It wore my skin, but its smile didn't belong to me. Too symmetrical, too proud, as if it had finally cracked the code, no longer guessing who I was, but certain it had become me. Garrett yanked my arm. "Run!" But the thing was faster. It didn't chase with feet. It folded through the space, like light warping through heat. 1 second, 20 feet away. The next, a breath from my face. I turned the flashlight toward it and screamed. The beam hit its chest and broke it apart into static dust, just long enough for us to dive into the nearest corridor. This hallway wasn't right. The walls were smooth and featureless. No doors, no markings. But I recognized it, not from memory, but from dreams. I used to have recurring nightmares as a child about being trapped in a hallway that never ended, with lights flickering above me, and the sound of someone sobbing behind the walls. It was this hallway. "Maya," Garrett whispered, panting. "I think you brought this one." I nodded, barely able to breathe. "This used to be in my head." He looked around warily. "Then it knows you better than ever. That means you're running out of time." We walked, or thought we did. The hallway looped, over and over. I started counting the lights in the ceiling to keep my grip on reality. There were 9, then 12, then 9 again. Garrett suddenly stopped and squinted at the left wall. There was something there. A seam, barely visible. He scraped at it with the crowbar, and the surface peeled away like cheap wallpaper. Behind it, to my horror, was a heavy steel door. Unmarked. But I knew it instantly, because it didn't exist on any blueprint. And it had no camera. The room without cameras. We slipped inside. The temperature dropped by 10 degrees. The room was windowless. Bare metal walls. Smelled like copper and mildew. No lights overhead, only a soft blue glow from an old terminal in the center. And in the middle of the floor, a man, sitting in a metal chair. His eyes were open, fixed on the far wall. Not moving, not breathing. Long dead, but perfectly preserved. A small speaker was lodged into the wall beside him, blinking red. And next to that, a label. Test subject number 5, signal anchor. Garrett stepped closer. "Oh God," he whispered. "He's still receiving it." I frowned. Receiving what? He pointed to the terminal. I stepped over and squinted. The screen was locked in a loop. Broadcast channel active. Source unknown. Duration 1972 present. Signal strength 98%. Entity status listening. My stomach turned. This is where it started, Garrett said. It wasn't an experiment. It was an invitation. They built this place to answer the signal. This man was the antenna. I backed away from the terminal. That emergency message, I thought it came from outside, from someone trying to help. Garrett's eyes met mine, hollow. It wasn't a warning. It was bait. The speaker crackled suddenly. We both froze. A faint hiss. Then, a voice. Garbled. Ancient. Like someone trying to speak with vocal cords that never quite formed. We are you. You called. You forgot. Then silence. And the screen blinked again. Lock all doors. It's already inside. Remember who invited us. We stumbled back. The walls of the room shimmered. Not metaphorically. Literally, like the metal was turning into static, fragmenting into tiny digital squares, pixel by pixel. Garrett screamed, "It's converting again. It's turning this room into memory." We tried to run, but the hallway outside was gone. In its place, a playground. My childhood playground. Yellow slides, wood chips, rusted monkey bars. And standing at the edge, my childhood self. 8 years old, hair in braids, holding a walkie-talkie. She looked up at me and said, softly, "I used to play radio station here. Remember?" I did. It was my favorite game. I'd pretend to be a broadcaster, sending secret messages into the sky. My mum thought it was cute. My dad thought it was a phase. But it wasn't just pretend. I used a real signal toy. High frequency. Interference-based. I'd whisper into it for hours. I called out. I invited it. My younger self handed me the walkie-talkie and said, "You're the first one who listened. That's why it likes you best." Then she dropped it and disappeared into white static. Garrett grabbed my hand. "This isn't real," he hissed. "But I remember it. Exactly like this." "Then you have to forget it." "I can't." "Try." The playground began to collapse. Slides folding into themselves. Swings reversing their chains. The sky darkened, turning into video grain. And then, the creature stepped out. Not as me. Not as my mother. Not as anyone. But as something unfinished. Skinless. Featureless. A tall, humanoid void with light bleeding from inside its frame. Like a rough sketch of a person trying to solidify. It hissed, and the sound warped into my voice. "Come back. Be part of the signal again." I ran. I didn't know where, just away. Through collapsing memories, melting rooms, twisted halls. Until suddenly, I burst through a real door. Slid to the floor, gasping. Real concrete. Real dust. Not static. And Garrett, right behind me. Pale. Shaking. But real. We'd made it out of the memory loop. We were back on sub-level 1. Near the old generator access hall. He turned to me, eyes wide. "It's stronger now. Your memories gave it shape. It wants more." I looked up, breathing hard. "Then we end it." Garrett nodded toward the emergency panel on the wall. The override. The self-destruct. It's buried under 3 layers of failsafes. But I know how to trip it. He paused. "Once I do, the whole facility goes." I nodded. "Do it." But before he moved, a whisper came through the overhead vent. A familiar voice. Garrett's voice. "She's not real, mate. She's the copy. I'm still in the chamber. It took her. Don't let her stop the sequence." He froze. So did I. His eyes locked on mine. "I didn't say that," he whispered. I stepped back, but neither did I. A moment of silence passed between us. Then we both grabbed weapons. I gripped the metal pipe tighter, my arm trembling. Across from me, Garrett held the crowbar the same way. The vent above us had gone silent, but its echo lingered in the air like the scent of ozone after a lightning strike. Two of us stood in the generator corridor. One of us might not be real. Neither of us spoke for a long, long moment. Then Garrett lowered his weapon an inch. If it wanted to stop the facility from blowing, it would try to confuse us, make us hesitate. I didn't lower mine. That's exactly what you'd say if you were it. He smiled, a sad, tired smile. We're wasting time, Maya. Every second we argue, it's learning. It's copying deeper. Next time it shows up, it won't make mistakes. I studied his face. Sweat, dirt, eyes wide, but human. Blinking. Slowly, I nodded. Okay, then let's finish it. The self-destruct panel was buried beneath layers of old wall plating and secured with both a manual override and a retinal scanner. The scanner was dead, of course, but Garrett bypassed it using a blown capacitor and the terminal code he'd pieced together over months of paranoia-fueled research. "This'll shut everything down," he said. "Power, comms, generators. Once we trigger the countdown, we've got 10 minutes. No turning back." "What happens if we don't?" I asked. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. We'd already seen what came next. Memories turned into traps. Identities unraveled like threads. The entity seeding itself into reality like a virus rewriting the very walls. It wasn't just a creature anymore. It was a signal. A pattern. A thought that thinks back. The system hummed to life. A robotic female voice, distorted and calm, echoed through the hallway. "Warning. Core override engaged. Protocol Omega in effect. Please evacuate immediately." We turned toward the evacuation shaft, but as soon as we reached the end of the corridor, the exit sign blinked red. Not green, red. Then it changed. "This exit is a memory." I backed away. What the hell? Another door appeared on the left wall, one that wasn't there 5 seconds ago. Above it, flickering in digital font. "Safe exit, follow light." Garrett stared at it. "That's not real. It's never used that font." "It knows we're trying to escape," I said. "It's building false exits." "Ignore anything that offers safety," he muttered. "Null only mimics comfort. Real survival never looks inviting." We moved fast, following manual signs Garrett had painted months ago in UV ink. He checked them with a flashlight, symbols only he knew the meaning of. Null couldn't replicate what it hadn't seen. But the walls began changing anyway. Doors moved. Floor patterns twisted. At one point, we passed the same blood-stained shoe twice, lying in identical position, 30 seconds apart. We were in a loop. And then, we saw it again. Me, standing at the end of the corridor, head tilted. This version wasn't smiling. She looked sad. She reached out a hand. "It hurts to remember, doesn't it?" she said. "The static, the noise. You brought it with you. It was always inside." "No," I said. "You called out. Year after year. Whispered into the radio. Told it your name. That's why it listens." Garrett raised the crowbar. She looked at him, eyes full of pity. "She's not the one you think she is." Then she dissolved, into ash. Gone. And behind her, another hallway opened. The real one. We ran. The elevator shaft to the surface was at the end of the generator wing, sealed behind 2 blast doors. Garrett slammed the override lever. The first door groaned open. The second blinked, paused, then failed. Manual override error. Authentication required. And then, the voice returned. But this time, it wasn't mine. It was Garrett's voice. "Maya, don't leave me. Not like this. I'm not done." I turned to him. "That's not you, right?" He didn't respond. He just smiled. Too wide. Too calm. I backed away. "It's you," I whispered. "You never left the memory chamber." He tilted his head, mouth moving, but no sound came out. Then he stepped forward, and his eyes bled static. I ran. The elevator was locked, but I didn't need it anymore. There was a maintenance ladder behind the paneling. I tore it open, slid into the shaft, and began climbing. Every few seconds, I looked down, and once, only once, I saw him climbing after me. Only, it wasn't Garrett anymore. It had no face, just static, a digital smear in the shape of a man. And then, silence. When I reached the top, the hatch was half open. I pushed through and was blinded by sunlight. Real sunlight. The wind hit me like a freight train. Cold, crisp, pine in the air, birds overhead. The surface. I collapsed onto the grass, breathing like I'd never breathed before. Then I heard the final broadcast. It didn't come from a speaker. It came from inside my own ears. A pressure, like altitude sickness. And then, my own voice whispered, "You made it out, but not alone." I touched my shoulder and saw a shadow moving independently. Not mine. It pulsed once, like a heartbeat made of ink, then vanished. I stood up. The comms tower in the distance had already gone dark. The signal was dead. The facility was gone. I walked for hours until I reached a roadside. A lone car slowed down and pulled over. The driver, a woman in a paramedic uniform, leaned out. "You okay? You're from the mountain, aren't you?" They said no one made it. I nodded, but then I saw her watching my shadow and frown, just slightly. 2 weeks later, classified transcript, internal memo from UK Emergency Broadcast Division, TO, Ministry of Signal and Communications. Subject, unauthorized signal interference. On July 3rd, an unscheduled emergency broadcast triggered Protocol Black 6 at Facility Aloan. Signal logs do not match any approved channels. Transcripts indicate human language approximations with embedded self-replicating code. Survivor Maya Price was recovered, disoriented but physically stable. Subject displays residual mimetic traits, reflection latency, memory bleeding, and acoustic feedback in absence of stimuli. Interview room recordings suggest presence of additional entity during debrief. Final note, subject's shadow does not align with external light sources. Epilogue. I don't sleep much anymore. Sometimes I wake up in a room I don't recognize, and it takes me a moment to remember who I am, or who I was, because something came back with me. Not a creature, not a person, a pattern. It sits inside me now, humming quietly. Not every day, just when I'm alone, or when I speak into the radio again. And sometimes, I let it hum, just to feel like someone's listening.